Hold. Okay. Hey, I'm going to stand right.
You'd have to be an early riser to be first in line at the Lloyd Noble Center this morning. This is the tail end of a line of eager Sooner fans, all hoping to buy a ticket to Thursday's game. But eagerness will not guarantee admission. Getting to the ticket window will. Around 11,000 accomplished the latter and will watch OU and Dayton trade baskets tomorrow night. The rest are out of luck. The game was sold out in a record 2 hours and 40 minutes. Credit for the quick sellout goes to OU's new $500,000 ticket computer. The $5 and $6 tickets were sold not only at Lloyd Noble, but also at 9 other locations in the Oklahoma City area.
Previously, we would have had to have ordered the tickets, which sometimes would take as long as 2 weeks and never under 5 days. So the only choices you would have would be to go with blank tickets. You would have to have a supply of tickets in stock. But with the computer, it does this first. It lets us have a set of tickets available anytime we want them for any event, which gives time, date, and opponent. Secondly, it gives you the capabilities of buying at many locations and buying the best ticket available at the time you get to the window.
For those who showed up too late to buy tickets, the computer offered the news quickly, but not painlessly. Larry Otis, Action 4 in Norman.
To sign this bill.
On March 2nd, Governor George Nigh signed a bill allowing amino augmented therapy, or IAT, to be tried in Oklahoma. IAT is an anti-cancer program. The author of the bill is Representative Carl Twidwell. His wife has cancer, and she went to the Bahamas to try IAT. The Twidwells have been pleased with the care provided by the man who developed the therapy, Lawrence Burton. Burton uses protein injections. He says they destroy cancer by bolstering a patient's immunity. The clinics in Oklahoma City will be the first IAT clinics in the United States. And according to some of Burton's patients, it's about time.
I first took one of my children to him for cancer. And when I did take her, she was given approximately 2 weeks to live. And she was 16 years old at the time. She never attended high school. She had a tutor at home for 3 years. And now she is in perfect health. She has been working for about 5 years. She will be 24 years old in June.
From what you heard inside, you may think everyone supports Dr. Burton. That's far from true. Some members of the medical profession think that his treatment only raises hopes. It doesn't cure cancer. Perhaps the final answers will come from what happens to patients here in Oklahoma. Bill Ross, Action 4, at the State Capitol. State Capitol.
An Oklahoma City viewer would like to know how long it takes to obtain a decree of divorce in Oklahoma. Well, once you've satisfied the residency requirement, which is 6 months, so that you may bring a divorce action in Oklahoma courts, and you've filed your petition for divorce, then the amount of time required to obtain a decree depends upon whether or not you have children and the number and complexity of issues that must be decided in your case. If the parties are in agreement as to the terms of the decree and you have no children, then a decree may be entered any time after 10 days following the filing of your petition. However, if you are in agreement but have children, there is a 30-day waiting period. If you're not in agreement, then the time in which it takes to obtain a decree will be somewhat related to the number and complexity of issues that the court must decide. The Oklahoma Bar Association has a new pamphlet concerning such issues, which may be obtained by calling 524-2365 if in the Oklahoma City area, or by calling 1-800-522-8065, which is a toll-free number if outside the Oklahoma City area. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs. An Edmond viewer writes and would like to know how much notice a landlord must give a tenant before raising that tenant's rent. Well, if the tenant's lease has expired, so that their tenancy is essentially one of month to month, then reasonable notice prior to the next due date for rent is all that would be required. Further, there is presently no limitation on the number of increases that could be made on a monthly basis. The Oklahoma Bar Association has a pamphlet entitled Tenants' Rights and Remedies and also has one for landlords. Either or both of these can be obtained from the Oklahoma Bar Association by calling 524-2365 if in the Oklahoma City area, or by calling 1-800-522-8065, which is a toll-free number if outside the Oklahoma City area. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs.
The plain brown Chevy hardly looks like a getaway car. The man strapping himself in doesn't appear to be a lawbreaker. Nevertheless, this police officer has reason to follow. And the chase is on. The chase is part of a required officer training program given by the Oklahoma City Police Department. The object is to steer, corner, maneuver, and brake efficiently. There's more to beating the clock than pumping the accelerator. Efficient drivers do not oversteer, do not overbrake. Those poor driving techniques would make pursuit driving impossible. Officers are being taught to avoid them. They've been weaving through this half-mile course since October, hoping to cut their time to 1 minute 5 seconds, the minimum passing grade.
But we have had quite a number of accidents in the past years. What we're trying to get down here is to have less accidents during a pursuit or even through normal patrol driving. But if they are involved in an accident, then what we've tried to do is to lessen the severity of the accident.
104.88, get a little spinning.
Yeah.
Time is important, speed is secondary.
Taking the turns all right?
The turns are fine, but you're doing a little spinning when you're accelerating.
Start to come out.
Right.
The course is laid out in the parking lot of Whitewater Amusement Park, and so the maximum speed is only about 45 miles per hour. However, the low-speed, high-stress program should result in fewer officer accidents. Larry Otis, Action 4, Whitewater.
In response to several letters, today's question is, can a girl and a guy live together without being considered common law married? I've heard so many versions concerning the definition of a common law marriage, such as introducing someone as your spouse, living together for over 6 months, etc. Can you set me straight on this? Well, a common law marriage exists when parties capable of being married agree to become husband and wife and pursuant to such agreement, live together and hold themselves out to the public as husband and wife. Without such an agreement to become husband and wife, or without holding themselves out to the public as such, merely living together will not create a common law marriage. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs. A viewer writes in and says, my husband and I bought a home. We put my mother's name on the deed just in case something happened to us. Now we want to sell the house, but she does not. Can she stop us from selling? The answer is yes, unless you're able to remove her name from the title to your home. Since her name is on the deed, her signature would be required to sell the property. Unless she agrees to the sale, you'll be forced to file a partition suit in district court to determine the respective interests of the record owners. Since the house cannot be divided into 2 or 3 pieces, the court will order the sheriff to sell the property, and the proceeds will then be divided proportionally among all of the owners. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs.
Brilliant colors are the watchword in the creation of these exquisite Easter eggs. The eggs are not your ordinary colored decorations, but replicas of the ancient Ukrainian Easter art. The white shell wonders display geometric plant and animal designs, all theologically symbolic to the Ukrainians and a breathtaking novelty to all, a sharing.
To give them out as gifts or to ward off evil spirits, if you still believe in that type of thing, but mainly to share the beginning of spring.
But before sharing, the egg artists must spend 3 or more painstaking hours hovered over their fragile canvas. A small waxy instrument heated over a flame is used to apply the intricate designs on the delicate shells. They are then dipped in a succession of brightly colored dyes. The finished product, a true Ukrainian Easter egg, unlike anything at the supermarket or in the average Easter basket. Debbie Mash, Action 4.
Several people who work with the Oklahoma City Streets Department are not happy with their current working conditions. Workers have talked with their supervisors and city personnel officers about a number of grievances. Some workers charge supervisors give special treatment to those employees who are their friends. Street workers do say that not all supervisors are guilty of the preferential treatment complaint. In the event, they want some detailed work guidelines drawn up that are fair to all. Street employees basically have 2 problems they want worked out as soon as possible. Number 1, they don't like the current late policy, where a man or woman is docked a half an hour's pay for being a minute late to work, regardless of the circumstances. But their second and biggest complaint is that they can't understand why their supervisors can take a city vehicle to lunch and they can't. When a memo issued by Street Superintendent Fred Thompson says, employees are not permitted to use city vehicles for transportation to and from grocery stores or eating establishments during the working day or at lunchtime. City leaders and the employees are trying to work out these problems right now. They have 2 choices: either change the rules or have them applied to everyone in this department. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in downtown Oklahoma City.
An Oklahoma City viewer says that her neighbor keeps a Doberman in her backyard with only a 4-foot chain-link fence to restrain the dog. The viewer's little girl is afraid to play in the backyard because the dog barks at her and runs at the fence. Is there anything she can do to get rid of the dog? Well, until the dog has actually been out of the yard where it belongs, or it creates a nuisance by its barking, then there is little the authorities can do to solve your problem. One solution would be to erect a higher, solid fence between yours and your neighbor's property. This would keep the dog out of sight and create a higher barrier between the yards. If the dog does get out, then you can call the pound and have it picked up. But until then, you're pretty much on your own. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs. Is that all right? Yeah. An Oklahoma City viewer says that when he moved into his large apartment complex, he was asked to sign, in addition to his lease, an agreement wherein he agreed to refrain from bothering other apartment residents by loud noise. Now he finds that he is disturbed himself almost every night by the tenant above him. He would like to know if he can enforce that agreement. Well, perhaps you would want to pursue the enforcement of the agreement if you were actually to suffer monetary damages from the disturbances. However, I feel the document you signed was aimed mainly at setting some standards and making your residents aware of those standards. Your best remedy, in my opinion, still lies in the criminal laws of the Oklahoma City ordinances, which prohibit a disturbance of your peace. If the situation gets too bad and a friendly visit won't help, then call the police and sign a complaint against those people causing the problem. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs.
The prison rules were to become effective April 13th. The guards at McAlester were particularly upset with a provision that would have left them unarmed, without a weapon, on the recreational grounds. But Corrections spokesman Nancy Nunnally says that provision needs more study.
What it would require is more staffing. It would require additional just policies regarding the duties of not only the officers that would be on the yard, which is where the controversy, arose, but also the duties of the officers that would be in the towers, too, and how they would work with each other should anything happen. How could they signal to each other should something occur, either between inmates or between an inmate and an officer.
And Nunnally says since the department announced it's putting those new changes on hold, there have been no more complaints from the prison guards. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the Corrections Department.
So they called off the April 13th.
An Oklahoma City viewer says she has a rather unique situation. She says, I was married in 1976 to a man whose wife had disappeared 10 to 11 years before. My new husband told me she had been declared legally dead. However, in January 1978, she reappeared. Knowing our marriage had not really been legal, we separated. My problem now is, do we need a divorce, and what do I do to legally get married to someone else? Well, divorce may not be proper in this instance. Since your husband's former wife is still living, you are correct. There is no valid marriage between you and him. Since the marriage was not valid from the beginning, you do not have to have the court declare the marriage terminated through a divorce. But an Oklahoma case suggests that it would be in the best interest of society and good for the peace of mind of all parties concerned to have the court annul the marriage. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs. A viewer writes in and says, although I am divorced, I still have a life insurance policy on my ex-husband that we took out shortly after we were married. He is now remarried. The policy names me as a beneficiary. If he should die, would I still receive the proceeds from the life insurance policy? Well, the answer to your question depends on whether or not you still receive alimony or child support payments from your former husband, rendering you somewhat still dependent on him. If you are still dependent, then you have an insurable interest in his life, and you could recover part or all of the proceeds from the life insurance policy. If he is not obligated to make payments to you, whether for alimony or child support, then you have probably lost your insurable interest in his life, and the insurance company would not be obligated to pay you the proceeds from the policy in the event of his death. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs.
The emptiness and quietness of the deserted classroom. A subtle reality of the low enrollment in many schools in the Oklahoma City School District. Classrooms once a place of collective learning, now merely collecting dust.
Does dart, used that way, mean to move suddenly, or a thin pointed rod?
These children are not only learning the basics, but also the reality of change. Low enrollment threatens their school and others in the system with a shutdown, locking the doors of the school and perhaps a way of learning.
We all know that a small enrollment with a fewer number in a classroom is more desirable, more learning takes place. If they're put into another building that's overcrowded, both physically with the rooms and the size of the rooms, as well as the number of children in the room, it's not going to be as good a learning situation.
For thousands of people, classroom memories at Nichols Hills Elementary and other schools in the district may be memories that others never share. Schools where the dollars and cents of reading and writing are no longer economically feasible.
Please believe me, I don't want to close any school that is safe.
School Board President Lloyd Donworth says the board's objective is economic efficiency for education.
I do not want children going to school in an unsafe building or a building that's in bad need of repairs, and that if we have to operate within a budget, then we have to repair these buildings or they're not safe.
School board members indicate that some schools will inevitably be closed. The question is now, which ones and how many? Debbie Mash, Action 4.
And this is just an example. There's no reason.
Fire up here.
He was working on my car. They had been going together for a while, and they broke up. And evidently he couldn't handle it, man. You know, and I heard 2 shots, and I grabbed my daughter and threw her to the floor, man. And by the time I got outside, he was falling to the ground. He had shot himself in the head. I seen the pistol leaving his hand, so evidently he shot himself in the head. My other brother-in-law was sitting on this side of the car ducking, I guess in fear that he's gonna get shot or something. And I didn't know my sister had got shot. I thought it was the neighbors, you know, or somebody, you know, shooting, but
If you are an Oklahoma City homeowner, then chances are you've probably participated in the annual spring cleanup. This is when during the entire month of March, city crews will pick up just about any trash you have, if it's bundled properly. The city has received a lot of praise for its cleanup efforts. However, city leaders are worried about increased operating costs getting out of hand. And now officials are reevaluating the whole program.
thing that's alarming about it, in 1980 it cost us $336,000. 1982 it cost $624,000. I realize that some of that's inflation, increase in salaries and fuel and things like this, but on the other hand it raises a question, in 1984 is it going to cost us $1.2 million? I mean, I think we do need to get a handle on it. It is a big item, and I don't think anyone's opposed to the cleanup, but I'm just, that's a tremendous increase in cost in 2 years.
On the one hand, we're concerned about the cost and the time involved. On the other hand, we've got all of our people out trying to publicize the availability of it and make people use it, and by so doing drive the cost up.
The council did not vote on any specific ways to help pay for the spring cleanup. However, the cleanup bill will be passed on to consumers in some form before next spring arrives. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at City Hall. Weatherization is a major part of what the Community Action Program does. Insulating homes for poor and elderly people not only improves their living conditions, but will also save money on fuel bills. However, the program is in danger of losing its federal funding. And community action officials say times are too hard for eligible people to be without their services.
We're talking about elderly people that just cannot afford to get their houses weatherized. Several years ago, we didn't worry about weatherizing houses because we had plenty of gas and it wasn't high. The tide has changed, and it's necessary that we help the elderly and the poor.
There are about 64,000 people in Oklahoma City who are at or below the poverty level. And so the list of those who want weatherization is a long one. But unless funding is available, there will not even be a list. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Southeast Oklahoma City.
I hope they can sleep tonight when they see this lady that's been tossed out of a house that has no other place to go to. I know it was going to happen anyway. I know this. And I know this. That's why I tried to get out of here, but I couldn't find no house. Well, I don't see how the city can get away with this. People need houses, and by God, there's no other way.
Well, I think that we're giving them adequate time. When it was really 24 hours longer than we really felt would be necessary. We gave them it was about a week's notice.
People are moving into Oklahoma daily to take advantage of our state's economic boom. This in turn has put more and more motorists on our highways and roads. To combat the higher risk for accidents, new safety features such as the cement divider are continually being added to existing highways. Likewise, guardrails installed in the last 5 years are tapered at the ends for added protection to drivers. But guardrails that were put in 15 to 20 years ago are not tapered. That was the kind that took the life of a Seminole woman last night in Oklahoma City. Authorities at the scene say the guardrail did not properly deflect her car. Then why aren't the old guardrails changed if human lives are at stake?
We're trying to catch up. We're trying to bring up to date all the guardrails in the state of Oklahoma.
Why can't you?
Well, we're doing it. We're spending about $10 million a year doing just that. There's a lot of other safety things that we're spending that money for, but that, we're trying to do it. It's just that when you have a system, a highway system, extensive as the one we have in Oklahoma, again, 12,000 miles, it's just impossible to do all that overnight. We can't keep up with every safety device that's developed across the United States.
Judici says the Transportation Department may never catch up with improvements that are needed. A great deal of the safety responsibility will always remain with the driver. Carol Lambert, Action 4.